Good. Thank you for having me.
I just wanted to see if you could tell us a few things about what you do and what your everyday kind of schedule looks like working on a TV show.
Well, I'm a makeup and special effects artist for film and TV, um, but mostly TV. That's how my career kind of shifted to. And my days it really depends on the role because in a makeup department there's so many roles. There's the department head, just the big boss, key, which is the second hand to the department head, and then you get a third, maybe a fourth, and then you get the people who come and help out every few days if you have big number of, extra people or you need more help, and they are called day players. So it depends on what I'm doing. The last couple of projects that I did, I moved to a department head position. So I was um, the, the head of the team. And the days, how a day go for that is completely different from everybody else because you start earlier than everybody else in with production, going to production meetings, designing the looks, figuring out what you need, doing the budgeting, breaking down the scripts. So you kind of start maybe a month ahead of everybody for
Okay.
planning for the shoot. How many people do you need? Who are you going to hire? Who's proper to hire? Because every project is completely different. Now you have a most glamorous kind of soap opera kind of show.
Right.
You need people who are really strong in beauty and glam. Now you have something that has a lot of like a procedural, like a lot of gunshots and wounds and burns and all that, like a cop show. You need people who are strong in effect. So it depends on who you can hire for this specific project that you are in charge of. Um, and so you hire people, you do the script breakdown, you do the budgets, and then you start. And for a department head, you usually in film and TV, you usually shoot 5 days, just from Monday to Friday. That's the standard. Sometimes you end up shooting 6 days, which is you take Saturday and you take Sunday off. For a department head position, you get paid for those 6 days or 5 days, whatever you actually work, but you really are working on the weekend.
Hmm.
The last show I did, I would work, usually they have a cap on hours.
Okay.
Nowadays, before they didn't. I remember when I was on Walking Dead, I was
I do
working 18
remember
and
that.
19 hours.
Mhm.
Nowadays, because of all the negative things that come from that, it's really quite unhealthy to work 18 hours. Even if you think you're 20 and 25 and you can do it, it's not a good idea. So now they put a cap. That's a new thing that happened TV, that they put a cap of 14 hours
Okay.
on the day, your working day. But for a department head position, that doesn't really mean it's 14 hours. It's
Mhm.
14 hours of physical work, and then you got to go home and prep for the next day. Because who's going to do that for you? And that's another probably 2 hours of prep for the next day. If something happens, but one of the people in the team cannot make it, now you got to find other people to kind of um, uh, do the roles.
Right. So
So for a department head, technically it is 7 days a week. On paper, it's 5 6 days. But in real life, it is 7 days a week because you're doing and then you're signing on their sign sheets and all the stuff that has to do with the um, accounting and budgets and their timing, who's coming in, all that stuff. Anybody who has issues, usually all the issues comes up on a weekend. So for a department head, it's pretty much 7 days.
And so how many people are typically on your team?
It depends on the project. Well, nowadays,
Like for Deli Boy.
people don't want to talk about it. Nowadays, there's so much more work because of streaming, but
Mhm.
the budgets are way lower.
Right.
And the producers are getting in on not having a lot of man days. Man days is when how many people do you hire per day? That's called, or per week. That's called a man day. So if you have 1 week with only four main actors, you don't need to hire extra people. But you have one day with 300 extras,
Mhm.
background extras. So you need at least four people for that. So beside the people you're in the main team, you can hire an extra four people. But slowly but surely, the industry's really changing and the budgets are completely compressed that they're taking mandates away from you. So honestly, typically now they hire just three people, and the fourth is usually an additional. In the olden days, and in bigger shows, I've never department headed like a real big show. Bigger shows and bigger budget stuff, you usually have four people in your team and maybe a fifth as a background supervisor person. But
Where do you find
that's not that's not my experience for now. For now, some days you even fight for having a third person in the trailer.
yeah, where do you find your team as far as like for additional help or any, is it word of mouth? Is there like a website? Do you how is it?
The truth,
Yeah.
there is a union roster that you should go through. But the
Mhm.
problem is, you need people who you know, you've seen how they work, because you're working 15-hour days with somebody. You can be the best makeup artist in the world. If you're problematic, if you have attitude problems, nobody wants to deal with that. So you end up hiring people that you know. People reach out, like especially additionals, people will reach out, oh, can I just like day play? I'd love to work. So whenever anybody reach out, we try them for a day or two and see what's happened. Can they handle it? Right?
Right.
Do they listen to instructions? Because a lot of the issues also is there are people who have done this for so long
Mhm.
that they are a little bit hesitant about listening to somebody else. And that is a big problem. So technically on paper, you should go to the union roster and just go through people and hire through that. But technically, nobody does that. If you need people, just if you're desperate, that's what you're gonna do. But usually, you hire people you've worked with before, or tried before, or met before, or are recommended by people that you work with and like.
Mhm.
So it's all kind of a word of mouth.
How
And then
did,
you
sorry, how did you find your like group of makeup artists that you collaborate the most with or your first job? How did that come about?
No, it's my first job. I've been doing this for like 20 years. Since 20, technically on big shows, since 2014.
Okay.
It's never one show. Like I know people are under the impression if you do this, all the doors are gonna open for you.
Right.
If you do this, you're gonna know so many people. It's just one sh it's never like that. It's one project that gives you a good connection with one actor.
Right.
5 years later, they might recommend you because they remembered you were good, right? Or you work with somebody and their hair and they like you, and then 2 years later they get a project and then they recommend you to the department head. It's a network web,
Right.
and nothing really makes or breaks your career. It's not one thing that makes or breaks your career. It's who you're
What,
with. Because you can be on a big, amazing project with great makeup, but the people don't really like you, or you have a problem with them.
right.
So that will not count. For what would make somebody's career is actually winning an award. That's what would give you more work and more connection and more opportunity to network with people who work a lot. And then you can be in that group. It's a lot about, I don't want to say cliques,
Yeah.
it's a lot about groups who like each other because you
Right.
have to know how to do the job and you have to get along with the people and you have to be on the same what who I hired on Deli Boys, which was my first bigger show. I department headed a show a few years ago in Atlanta, but
Okay.
I it was my first time. I was inexperienced as a makeup department head. I was a key, but it was my first, department head position. And the mistake was I hired the wrong people. I just didn't know, and I hired people that I heard they were available, and I saw once at a party and they were nice, stuff
Uh-huh.
like that. And
Okay.
I looked at their resume, it looks great, but that kind of didn't really work. So for Deli Boys, which was my Hulu show
Hmm.
last year, I hired people that I actually worked with before, and I know how. I know their level, the skill, makeup skill level, and their attitude, and how flexible they are.
Yeah, because ultimately they have to help your job be easier and everybody collectively have to put the work out. But what would you say is your like specialties or what kind of like artist do you look for that will help you out?
Oh, do I look for as a key?
Yeah.
A hard worker, no attitude, wanna collaborate with you. And honestly, any experience, I heard that a couple of times from really experienced department heads. I'm not as experienced as you think. It's just been 3 shows. So makeup can be taught. That these are facts. Unless you've never done it before. But like if you have some sort of idea and you're kind of decent, kind of okay, makeup can be taught, attitude cannot.
Yeah.
So, you have to have a certain set of etiquettes. You,
Hmm.
you gotta go. You're not friends with the actors. You're friendly, but you're not friends.
Right.
A lot of people who go in and they just don't know their boundaries. They think they're all friends, and that's not the case. The
Mhm.
end of the day, you have to understand, especially with makeup and hair, and this is a service
Mhm.
industry.
Right.
No matter how, yeah, we are artists, it's great, but it's really a service
Mhm.
industry. So you have to have the mindset of that you are in service. You
Mhm.
are in service not of somebody, but you are in service of the movie.
Right.
You are there to help this project get, it's not about you. And
Mhm.
there's so many people when they have an idea and they think it's so brilliant for makeup, and when a director or the actor or somebody else is like, no, 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 let's change that. They take it so personally, and you cannot have that. You
Right.
have to
You have to be
be,
able to separate it.
it's not about you. You cannot, like, I see a lot of the people, and they're just like, they're taking all those pictures on set.
Mhm.
It's all the TikToks and a day in the life of whatever, whatever. You can't really do that. You can only do that with the approval of producers, the actors in the trailer, because you gotta know that everybody in the trailer has no makeup on.
Right.
They come in stumbling from bed 4 a.m. So you
Yeah.
can't be like, oh, look at me, look at the people I do, and all that. Like it's way more complicated now. So just a realization that it's not about you. It's about being in service to the production
Right.
and making it work.
I have a last question here. So if you were to start all over again and wanted to work in this business, what would be your route? What advice would
I
you
would
give?
have done things so different, so different. I didn't know. I didn't know any better. I was an immigrant. America was like a new world for me. I really should have when I started thinking that I'm just gonna do beauty, right?
Okay.
Like everybody's idea. So I didn't really concentrate on special effects. I learned it at school. I went to school for makeup special effects.
Where was that? That school?
Oh, it was in LA, no longer there. That was
Oh,
like 20 years ago. So I was just focused on one thing, and I think that is why my journey took so long. You have to learn as much as possible. You think focus is great, but you have to diversify. And I started doing effects because I was doing indies most of the time in LA, and I had to learn. So I taught myself. Um, I had some information from school, but if I would have done it before, right after school,
mhm.
I would have immediately interned at a lab, an effects lab, a working effects lab. And as a beauty makeup artist, I mean, people don't want to say that, but you really have to work at a makeup counter. Sales, you practice different skin tones. You start gauging the temperature of people and
Mhm.
knowing how to interact because you can be the best artist in the world. If you don't know how, if you're not a people's person, if you don't know how to behave and interact and have boundaries and respect other people's boundaries, this job is not for you.
Yeah,
I
that's
would
really
definitely interned at a lab. Yeah.
great. Yeah, that's exactly what the intention here is to try to help people that are just trying to start out and kind of because same way with me, like I have a lot of things that I would have done different, but yeah, that's all really great pointers that you gave us. So thank you.
You're welcome.
And I appreciate you participating and your time. I know it's very valuable. So thank you so much for spending the Saturday with us.
Thank you, Hugo.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.